Hey, how's it going guys? My name is Eelwood and today we are looking at Pine, an award-winning indie game just made available on Steam and Nintendo Switch, and to answer the ultimate question, is it worth your time? And yes, I know, last video I did say I'll try to do horror games for the rest of October, but when I saw this, I had to make a review. Next week, I promise, will be a horror game, so don't worry. So, Pine is a single-player, indie, open-world action-adventure game. Set in a primal fantasy world it seems, you play as a boy named Hugh, part of a tribe of humans in a world where man appears to be at the bottom of the food chain. You'll be exploring the large continent of Albemarle, creating both conflicts and bonds with the various other races of the land, all while trying to find a new, safe home for your people. So, aesthetically the game looks pretty good considering it's an indie open world game. It has that kind of Fable, Cameo, Breath of the Wild look to it that did make me want to purchase it in the first place. The colours used are pretty bright and vibrant that give plenty of life and character to the various environments in the game, but without stepping too far into that childish, oversaturated look, which is a good thing. Lighting effects are also pretty good. General shadows, environmental lighting and lighting effects are all very decent and give plenty of visual immersion to the game both indoors and out. Other visuals like damage effects, explosions and more are all very obvious, bright and unmissable, which all add to the overall gaming experience very well. In my recording specifically though, I did have to reduce the quality a bit for some reason because it was affecting my recorded frames but not my actual gameplay. Very unusual. General detail is also fine, not exactly revolutionary, but the environmental, object and weapon/armor details are all thorough, simple and charming, which I personally prefer anyway. The level of ground clutter overall is okay. Not too little, yet not too much. I would have preferred more open, grassy plains to help separate areas like in Breath of the Wild, but due to the considerably smaller world map compared to the humongous Zelda title, you can't really blame them. The UI is okay, very clean, neat and simple. A bit of a shame the minimap doesn't really display anything other than a compass and your manually marked locations. The currently equipped weapon buttons should be a tad more obvious, and the blue stamina bars should have a split into 3 very obvious separate bars to match the stamina system a lot better. Level layouts are obviously very large. This is an open world game of course. The overworld has plenty of variation like swamps, deserts and ice peaks, but as mentioned, nowhere near as big as a AAA title, but for an indie game, more than large enough. Other areas like caves and underground ruins are definitely large enough with fun yet simple pathing, which is always nice. Character and enemy designs are especially good in my opinion. The humans in this game don't look the best, with your character also looking a bit too robotic and simple. Enemy designs however are much better. The various races of the world like the birdmen, fox people and especially the crocs look pretty fucking good. All their animations, armor/weapon styles and how they interact with the world are all very impressive and give each race their own personality and character just from their designs alone. It is a shame that humans in this game compared to other races look very dull and boring. Not exactly a bad thing though, as it does fit in with the whole humans at the bottom of the food chain concept, which I suppose they've delivered very well. The aesthetics overall give the game a very simple, charming feel that you can't help but enjoy. The OSTs in Pine are fully orchestrated soundtracks with a lot of gentle instruments and drawn out high notes which give each track a pure, charming, light-hearted feel that a lot of the time, especially when in combat, you don't really notice. When I checked online, I found out that each race in the game even has its own combat OST. I literally had no idea through my entire playthrough. There are the occasional stronger tracks, like when you're in the Croc swamp camps, or the Lizard Men capital for example, but pretty much all tracks in this game are very gentle, generic background tracks that don't really have any overly distinctive features that make them stick in your head very well. Everything else sound related though, like attack sounds, grunts and groans, environmental sounds and more, are all very decent and immersive. You do kind of have voice acting in this game in the form of incomprehensible gibberish, which I don't mind anyway. Overall, a very high sound quality, but nothing exactly spectacular. Now for the gameplay. So firstly, Pine doesn't have any option for difficulty when you start. As I always say, it is what it is whether you like it or not, just like every good game should be. As this is an open world action adventure game, you don't get any kind of character customization whatsoever. It's very similar to Breath of the Wild in that sense. It's quite literally press start and play. So when you do exactly that, you're given one of those extremely brief intro cutscenes, which doesn't really explain anything, but instead allows you to control your character very quickly and get stuck in pretty much immediately. The game's plot at the start of the game isn't exactly obvious, but as you play the intro, you do start to get an idea of what you're doing. It seems pretty innocent at first. You go exploring with your brother, get up to mischief, learn the basic movement, weapon controls, and collect a couple of items. By the time you're done, turns out your brother gets killed by a landslide. Your character obviously gets upset by this, then boom, you're hit by the game title, indicating your intro is now over. Executed pretty well, I have to say. Sadly though, landslides are now starting to make your hilltop home uninhabitable. As a result, you set out down to the mainland with the intention of finding a new home for your people. But unfortunately, as I said, humans appear to be the most underpopulated, undereducated race on the mainlands, it would seem. So good luck actually finding a new home. In terms of what you can actually do in this game, I was quite surprised to find out that there isn't any kind of leveling system, skills, perks, stats, upgrade system, currency, or anything like that. This is, however, compensated for in the form of a very basic star rating system for equipment quality, like armor and weapons, basic main and side quests as you'd expect, pretty good puzzles to solve that do sometimes take a while to figure out on your own, a glossary which provides actual useful information that you're actually going to use, a stamina system that needs monitoring and forces you to consume food for both healing and energy, which is a lot more annoying than fun. Pretty basic world map with a ping system, the ability to place things like bombs and traps for a more strategic touch on combat when you feel like it. Quite an impressive and thorough crafting system that allows you to craft pretty much anything you will ever need. Vendor trading is done purely by actually trading items of similar value with one another. 3 unique abilities in the form of beast taming, stunning electricity, and telescope/scanning blimp combo that can help both in and out of combat, and the very rare passive perks from certain equipable items, which I only came across one in my entire playthrough. You then have this game's most important selling point, the reputation system. As I said, in Pine you can make friends and enemies with the inhabitants of Albumer. By default, when you start, everyone hates you of course, but near every race's camp you'll find a donation box. You can put anything you like into these boxes, with certain items being favoured by certain races. This will increase your reputation with the race you're donating to very slowly, and doing so will reduce your reputation with all other races by a certain amount. When you're hated by a race, you'll be attacked on sight. Neutral means they'll just question mark you when spotted, and friendly allows you to progress specific quests, trade with them, and have them help you sometimes when in combat. This system does have a few pretty impressive qualities as well, such as each race having a reputation board with other races to show the bonds between each. They have a totem that displays the camp's current population and resources, and the actual camps get visual upgrades to buildings and the residents' armor and weapons if you manage to upgrade them by donating what they need. You can also use the donation boxes to do certain things like buff a camp's defenses, increase population growth, and improve their resource management for a set time. You can even poison food supplies of enemy camps to reduce their stats, put them into panic, or make them completely neutral for a set time. But for the absolute best part of all, you can set up raid flares from friendly factions in or around enemy camps, which will sound a horn and spawn a raid party that will try to take over the enemy camp of your choice. If successful, your race will take over the camp and replace everything in it with their own. Fucking awesome. All these points combined with the fact that you can ally yourself with any race you want is pretty impressive stuff, I must admit. But bear in mind though, on paper, all these things sound fucking amazing, which they kind of are, but imagine them in a very basic raw form and not exactly a complex revolutionary piece of game design, just to set your expectation. Character controls involve your general movement as expected, with the addition to sprint, jump, lock onto enemies, attack, combo attack, charge attack, ranged attack, dodge and kick. You have your general 3-hit combo as standard, but you can actually mix and match certain commands to do different things. Like sprinting and then kick will perform a slide tackle, dodge and attack will perform a lunge attack and combo, blocking perfectly allows you to parry, spamming attack after performing a successful charge attack will lead into a very powerful slow-mo combo, and a couple of other minor ones here and there. All these abilities you kind of discover as you play, but are not unlocked at all, so you pretty much have the ability to do everything from the get-go, which is nice. Now, I'm not gonna lie, due to the pretty bad human designs, slowish start to the game, and the general childish feel at the start, I was regretting buying this game in the first 20 to 30 minutes. But as soon as I got into combat for the first time, I thought to myself, now we're talking. The combat, in all fairness, is pretty fun overall. It can seem a tad slow at times in one-on-one, as the AI isn't the best when it comes to combo attacking. They literally take a whole 2 to 5 seconds between everything they do, and even give a visual cue to inform the player that they're about to attack. This is somewhat remedied due to the generally high damage / HP of pretty much all enemies. The surprisingly common 2 or more against 1 can be a bit chaotic, and the fact that it's actually very fun to parry and dodge perfectly, especially when following them up with very strong attacks. Overall, I have to admit, a pretty decent and immersive gaming experience. So, for the ultimate question, is it worth your time? It's a cozy, light-hearted, simple attempt at an open world game. Although short, it just manages to stand on its own 2 feet as an underdog of its genre. I'm going to give this game a 4-star or 81 out of 100. To a younger audience or someone that has little to no gaming experience, this game would be an extremely good, cheaper alternative to Breath of the Wild to start you off. It's not very long, the game is pretty easy to learn and will provide a consistent challenge to keep you engaged as you play. If you're more experienced, however, it won't be your first choice. But if you're curious, I'd say give it a go. The fact that humans look pretty bad compared to all other races, the endgame reputation system rewards are non-existent, and boss fights are nowhere to be seen, which are all a big shame for me. The game can also be quite buggy at times, and your camera when locked onto targets can get pretty nuts if you're near any kind of obstacle. Clearly, a lot of missed opportunities like faction companions, armor / weapon visual effects, better ranged combat mechanics, camp customization / commands, and actual bosses, just to name a few. But as I said before, the game is very what you see is what you get, and what you're seeing ain't actually that bad. Due to its fun, quirky, carefree nature, I'd have to recommend this game a lot more than I wouldn't. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. Subscribe if you want to see more games I'll be reviewing each week, and remember guys, horror game review next week. Not sure what I'm doing yet. Hopefully if I see a sexy release on Steam, we'll have a look at it. If not, I'll default to a classic. But as always, all the best guys, take care.